What if Osama bin Laden had a very good reason for his attack on 9/11? What do you think that reason could have been? Do you think the Muslim world, the people he claimed to have been fighting for, considers him a hero or a martyr? Well, I think some people consider him to be a hero, while some others consider him a coward. And there's this old saying that goes this way: one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. To him, he was fighting a just cause. But what do you think his actual motive was? In understanding his motive, let's take a look at his background and the influence his father played in shaping his life and the decisions that eventually led to the tragic September 2001 bombing. Watch this video to the end, as it contains some really sensitive information the government has been trying to hide from the media beyond Continental lines. Osama bin Laden's father, Mohammed bin Awad bin Laden, was a self-made billionaire who played a pivotal role in shaping Saudi Arabia's infrastructure in the mid-20th century. His life is a fascinating rags-to-riches story, deeply intertwined with Saudi Arabia's rapid modernization, and offers an intriguing backdrop to the complex story of his son, Osama. Mohammed was born in 1908 in the Hadramaut region of Yemen. Like many poor Yemeni men of his generation, he migrated to Saudi Arabia in search of work. He arrived in Jeddah in the 1930s with nothing more than a desire to succeed. Starting as a small-time construction worker, his tireless work ethic, entrepreneurial skills, and ability to secure influential contracts earned him the favor of Saudi Arabia's royal family. The turning point in his career came when he secured a contract to refurbish the Al-Haram Mosque in Mecca and later the Prophet's Mosque in Medina. These prestigious projects cemented his company's reputation and aligned him with the kingdom's leadership. His construction empire, the Saudi bin Laden Group, became one of the largest and most influential companies in the Middle East. The company was responsible for much of the kingdom's modernization, including highways, airports, and government buildings. Despite his successes, Mohammed's journey was not without its challenges. One of his early struggles was convincing the Saudi authorities and private investors to trust a relatively unknown contractor from Yemen. His family's humble background in Yemen was seen as a disadvantage in a society that often favored those with aristocratic lineage. Moreover, the construction industry at the time was highly competitive and prone to economic fluctuations. Another major challenge was managing the rapid expansion of his business. As his company grew, so did the responsibilities and complexities involved in managing large-scale projects. Many of the projects involved high risk, and failing to deliver could have led to financial ruin or the loss of royal favor. However, Mohammed's resilience, business acumen, and ability to deliver quality work on time allowed him to overcome these challenges. His company continued to thrive, and he quickly became one of the wealthiest men in the kingdom. Mohammed bin Laden married many times and fathered over 50 children. His wealth and success allowed his family to lead lives of privilege. His children were educated in elite schools, and they grew up surrounded by immense wealth and connections to the Saudi royal family. However, despite the luxury, the family maintained conservative values rooted in Islamic tradition. One of Muhammad's youngest sons, born to a Syrian mother, was Osama bin Mohammed bin Awad bin Laden, who would later gain international infamy as the mastermind behind the 9/11 attacks. Osama was born in 1957, the 17th child of Mohammed's sprawling family. As part of this vast family, Osama grew up within a highly structured, religious, and traditional environment with strict adherence to Islamic values. Mohammed bin Laden's life came to a tragic end on September 3, 1967, when he died in a plane crash near Usran in southwestern Saudi Arabia. He was traveling on a business trip when the plane, piloted by an American pilot named Jim Harrington, crashed due to poor weather conditions. His sudden death left behind a massive construction empire and a vast family with over 50 children from multiple wives. Osama was just 10 years old when the tragedy struck his family. Muhammad's death left behind a complicated family structure and a financial empire that would later play a role in Osama's radicalization. Despite his death, the bin Laden family continued to manage and expand the construction business. The Saudi bin Laden Group, still one of the largest construction firms in the Middle East, remains a significant player in Saudi Arabia's economy to this day. Osama bin Laden's early life was marked by wealth and opportunity. He attended elite schools in Jeddah and, like many of his siblings, received a Western-style education. However, despite the influence of Western culture in his early years, Osama maintained a deep connection to Islamic principles. As a young man, Osama studied economics and business administration at King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah. It was during his time at the university that he came under the influence of radical Islamic thinkers, particularly Abdullah Azzam, a Palestinian scholar who played a key role in promoting the concept of global jihad. The turning point in Osama's life came in 1979, when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. The invasion became a rallying point for Muslim militants worldwide, and Osama, inspired by the cause, traveled to Afghanistan to join the Mujahideen in their fight against the Soviets. Using his wealth and connections, Osama helped fund the resistance, establishing recruitment networks and providing logistical support for the fighters. He became a symbol of the Islamic resistance to foreign intervention in the Muslim world. Osama's involvement in the Afghan resistance laid the groundwork for his later creation of Al-Qaeda, the organization responsible for the 9/11 attacks. After the Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan in 1989, Osama returned to Saudi Arabia as a hero among many radical Islamic circles. However, tensions arose between Osama and the Saudi government due to the kingdom's alliance with the United States. Disillusioned by the presence of U.S. troops in Saudi Arabia following the Gulf War, Osama became increasingly hostile toward both the Saudi monarchy and Western powers. In 1996, he issued his infamous fatwa declaring jihad against the United States and its allies, which eventually led to the devastating terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, killing nearly 3,000 people. Al-Qaeda, meaning the base, was founded by bin Laden in the late 1980s. Its ideology revolved around the concept of jihad, interpreted by bin Laden and his followers as a holy war against perceived enemies of Islam, primarily Western powers led by the United States. Bin Laden saw the U.S. as the main oppressor of Muslims worldwide, whom he felt had corrupt governments in Muslim countries and violated sacred lands. The goal of Al-Qaeda's ideology was to unite Muslims under a single Islamic state, free from Western influence and governed by strict interpretations of Islamic law. To achieve this, bin Laden sought to weaken the United States and, by extension, the Zionist Crusader Alliance, which he believed oppressed Muslims globally. He thought that attacking America directly would ultimately lead to a retreat of U.S. influence from the Middle East. The choice of targets on September 11th was strategic and symbolic. Bin Laden aimed to hit what he considered to be the pillars of American power: World Trade Center, which signified economic power. The Twin Towers symbolized American economic dominance and influence worldwide. Attacking them was an assault on the heart of the American economy. The Pentagon, which signified military power. As the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense, the Pentagon represented America's military strength. Targeting it was intended to shake the U.S. military confidence. And lastly, the White House, or Capitol building, which solidified political power. Although the final hijacked plane, United Flight 93, did not reach its target, it was believed to have been aiming for either the White House or the Capitol building. These symbols of political power were integral to bin Laden's plan to destabilize America's perceived might. The coordinated attacks demonstrated the reach and resolve of Al-Qaeda and communicated bin Laden's message globally, that even the world's most powerful nation was vulnerable. Bin Laden intended for the 9/11 attacks to do more than destroy American landmarks. He sought to create a profound psychological impact, spreading fear and provoking a reaction that would embroil the U.S. in prolonged conflicts in the Middle East. He hoped these conflicts would weaken the U.S. both economically and militarily, stretching its resources and undermining its influence globally. In Osama's view, a military response from the U.S. would galvanize more Muslims to join his cause, rallying them around Al-Qaeda's mission. The subsequent U.S.-led invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq did, in fact, play a role in recruiting fighters to Al-Qaeda's cause, as bin Laden anticipated. The 9/11 attacks led to monumental shifts in global security and foreign policy. In response, the U.S. launched the War on Terror, leading to the invasion of Afghanistan to dismantle Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, who had provided bin Laden sanctuary. 2 years later, the U.S. invaded Iraq, motivated in part by a desire to reshape the Middle East and prevent future threats. Although bin Laden's ultimate goal of expelling the U.S. from the Middle East and establishing a unified Islamic State was not realized, his actions led to decades of conflict, an increase in global terrorism, and substantial economic, political, and human costs. While Osama bin Laden was killed by U.S. forces in 2011, the legacy of 9/11 endures. Security measures around the world were transformed, leading to increased surveillance, stringent airport security, and the establishment of new government agencies like the Department of Homeland Security. The geopolitical landscape of the Middle East remains volatile, partly as a result of the war on terror and the power vacuums created in its aftermath. The contrast between Mohammed bin Laden's legacy as a visionary builder and Osama bin Laden's notoriety as a terrorist leader is stark. While Mohammed helped construct modern Saudi Arabia and contributed to its economic development, Osama's legacy is marked by violence, global conflict, and the promotion of extremist ideology. A striking example of the ongoing complexities surrounding the bin Laden family occurred in August 2015 when Osama's stepmother and half-sister died in a plane crash in the UK. The private jet, owned by the Saudi bin Laden group, overshot the runway while trying to land, killing all on board. This tragic event, eerily echoing Mohammed bin Laden's own death in a plane crash decades earlier, serves as a reminder of the family's turbulent and tragic history. In the years following Osama bin Laden's death in 2011, members of his family have distanced themselves from his extremist views. Many of them remain involved in legitimate business ventures, particularly the construction empire that their father built, but they live with the shadow of Osama's actions and the global impact of his radicalism. The bin Laden family's story is one of remarkable contrasts. From Mohammed bin Laden's humble beginnings and rise to become a construction titan, to Osama bin Laden's transformation from privileged son to global terrorist. The family's legacy is deeply intertwined with the history of the Middle East and global geopolitics. Osama's background, born into wealth but radicalized by ideological fervor, offers a glimpse into how personal and historical forces can shape individuals in extraordinary and often tragic ways.